Because of your existence, two beautiful, innocent lives were denied a full life. You eliminated their voices from this earth.
TikTok made them stars, filling screens with dances, pranks, and viral fame. But behind the cameras lurked killers, smugglers, and liars. This is the dark side of 10 TikTok stars who went viral and ended up sentenced to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Number 10. Mahek Bukhari. On the night of February 11, 2022, two friends, Saqib Hussain and Hashim Ijazuddin, drove along the A46 dual carriageway in Leicestershire. Their Skoda Fabia was speeding, headlights shaking, their voices panicked. Moments later, Saqib called emergency services. His voice trembled as he said, "They're trying to cull us. They're hitting our car." It was the last thing anyone heard from him. Minutes later, the car exploded in flames after colliding with a tree. Both men died instantly. What looked like a tragic accident soon unraveled into one of Britain's most shocking influencer-related murder cases. Detectives found that Saqib had been romantically involved with Haneen Bukhari, Mahek's 45-year-old mother. When the affair ended, Saqib demanded money to keep their private videos secret. Text messages later revealed threats and pleas. He wanted closure, but they wanted silence.
Sharing makeup tutorials, fashion and dance routines, often alongside her mum Haneen.
Mahek and her mother arranged to meet Saqib that night at a Tesco car park in Leicester. But they didn't go alone. With them were several men, all friends or acquaintances, driving separate cars. CCTV footage later showed the convoy forming before heading toward the meeting point. When Saqib and his friend arrived, they sensed danger and fled. But the Bukharis and their group followed in high-speed pursuit. Investigators recovered roadside cameras showing the chase at over 100 miles per hour. The Audi TT, driven by Mahek, was seen swerving behind the victim's car moments before it crashed. Initially, when police questioned Mahek and her mother, they tried to make up stories. Phone tower data placed Mahek's mobile at the scene. Messages retrieved from her phone included phrases like, "He's not going to blackmail us anymore." The trial at Leicester Crown Court began in February 2023 and lasted nearly 4 months. Prosecutors argued that Mahek used her online popularity and charm to manipulate others into helping her carry out the fatal plan. Her defense insisted it was never meant to end in death, just confrontation. On August 4, 2023, the jury returned unanimous verdicts. Mahek and her mother were convicted of murder. 3 men were found guilty of manslaughter, 2 others were acquitted. The judge described it as a tale of obsession, deceit, and vanity. He told Mahek that her online fame had given her a sense of untouchable power. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 31 years and 8 months, while Haneen received life with a minimum of 26 years and 9 months. As the sentence was read, the courtroom remained silent. The same cameras that once made Mahek famous now recorded her descent into infamy. Number 9. JinnKid.
So the bottom line here is he will die in prison. He will never be a free man. He will take his last breath there.
It was one of the most watched and unsettling influencer trials in modern American history. The case of Ali Nasser Abulaban, known to millions on TikTok as JinnKid, was not just another celebrity scandal. It was the tragic dissection of a digital star's fall from comedy fame to cold-blooded murder. Ali had been a master of mimicry. His spot-on impressions of Tony Montana from Scarface and Vito Corleone from The Godfather earned him millions of views and a devoted fan base. His videos were quick, sharp, and funny, short bursts of charisma that made audiences forget he was just an ordinary man from San Diego with a family and a quiet life. He seemed untouchable, adored, and successful, but behind the camera, his world was disintegrating.
In court, it was revealed the couple had a rocky marriage.
By October 2021, Ali's marriage to Anna Abulaban was in ruins. Friends would later testify that arguments had turned into shouting matches, and shouting had turned into fear. Anna had left him and moved into a separate apartment on Island Avenue, taking their young daughter with her. Those close to the couple described Ali as controlling, unable to handle rejection, and consumed by jealousy. The marriage had collapsed under the weight of fame, suspicion, and ego. On October 20th, 2021, things took a darker turn. Ali went to Anna's apartment while she was away. Security footage later showed him entering with a key, moving quietly through the rooms. He wasn't there to reconcile, he was there to spy. He installed a listening app on his daughter's iPad, turning it into a surveillance device. That night, he returned home and began monitoring the sounds of Anna's life from his phone, every conversation, every whisper, every detail. The following day, October 21st, 2021, was when everything unraveled. According to investigators, Ali claimed to have heard a man's voice in the apartment through the listening app. The voice, he said, belonged to Anna's friend, Rayburn Barron. In that instant, rage consumed him. He grabbed his 9mm handgun, got into his car, and drove straight to the high-rise complex. At around 3 p.m., the building's security cameras captured him, stepping into the elevator, hoodie pulled up, backpack slung across his shoulder. There was no hesitation in his movements. Minutes later, several residents on the 35th floor reported the sound of multiple gunshots echoing through the hall. When police officers arrived, they found Anna and Rayburn lying lifeless in the living room. Both had been shot in the head at close range. The scene was brutal, quick, cold, and deliberate. Alli didn't flee in panic. He walked out as if nothing had happened, got into his car, and drove to pick up his daughter from school. What he didn't know was that the San Diego Police Department was already tracking his vehicle. Officers intercepted him hours later along Interstate 805. The gun used in the killings was found hidden under the driver's seat. His daughter was in the back, unharmed but confused. During interrogation, Alli confessed. He admitted to shooting both victims, but claimed he had snapped after hearing another man's voice in his wife's home. His defense would later argue that the crime was committed in a state of emotional distress, not premeditation. But prosecutors saw it differently. They charged him with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of child endangerment, arguing that every step, from installing the listening app to carrying the loaded gun, was calculated. The trial began in February 2024, nearly 2.5 years after the killings. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, families, and even some of his former fans who had come to see the man behind the viral videos. Deputy District Attorney Taryn Brast opened the prosecution with a sharp statement. This was not a crime of passion. This was a crime of possession. In April 2024, Alli took the stand in his own defense. He broke down as he recounted the moment he allegedly lost control. He claimed he didn't remember pulling the trigger, only feeling a surge of anger. But cross-examination quickly dismantled his story. Prosecutors confronted him with his own texts, messages where he had spoken about getting revenge and making her regret everything. On May 2, 2024, after 2 days of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. Guilty on all counts. When the decision was read, there was no outburst, no tears, no apology. Alli sat completely still, eyes forward, hands clasped. The sentencing came later that month. Judge Kimberly Lagotta addressed him directly, calling the murders a deliberate act of control and cruelty. She sentenced him to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus 50 years for firearm enhancements. The sentence ensured he would never walk free again. As bailiffs led him out of the courtroom, reporters noted how eerily calm he looked. No trace of the charisma that once drew millions of followers. No sign of the man who had made people laugh. Just silence. Number 8. Haneen Hossam. In April 2020, a 20-year-old Egyptian university student named Haneen Hossam uploaded a TikTok video inviting women to join a short-form video platform where they could earn money for their views. To her, it was harmless. To the Egyptian authorities, it was criminal. Egypt's conservative social laws had already drawn a line against what they considered immorality online. As Hossam's videos gained millions of views, prosecutors accused her of inciting debauchery and human trafficking. She was arrested in May 2020 and charged under the country's cybercrime law. Authorities claimed she used social media to exploit young women. Hossam argued that she was simply teaching others to make legal online income. Her first trial in 2021 ended with a 2-year sentence, but the prosecution appealed. In June 2022, the Cairo Criminal Court delivered a new verdict: 10 years in prison and a fine of 200,000 Egyptian pounds. The evidence was based almost entirely on her TikTok content. Prosecutors showed her videos in court as proof of moral corruption. They also cited private messages in which she discussed joining promotional platforms. But here is the twist. Hossam was not present when the verdict was read. She had fled. Authorities launched a manhunt, and in June 2022, she was arrested at her family's home after posting a video crying and pleading for forgiveness. 10 years for what? She said through tears before being taken into custody. She was transferred to Kanata Women's Prison near Cairo. During her appeal hearings, her lawyers argued that the charges were politically motivated. But in 2023, the Court of Cassation upheld the sentence, but reduced the sentence to a 3-year term, though allowing limited reduction under review. International media, including the BBC, Reuters, and Al Jazeera, covered the case as part of Egypt's broader campaign against social media figures. At least a dozen other TikTok creators were arrested around the same period. Hossam's case became the most prominent, symbolizing the collision between internet freedom and state control. Her once bright persona as a playful student influencer faded into a legal saga that continues to define digital censorship in Egypt. Number 7. Modou Adams. On April 2, 2024, Peruvian airport officers at Jorge Chavez International Airport stopped a 25-year-old British man during a routine luggage check. Inside his suitcase, hidden beneath false panels, they discovered 2.9 kilograms of cocaine. The man was Modou Adams, a small-time influencer from London who had been posting motivational TikTok videos about travel and success. Police detained him immediately. Footage of his arrest quickly surfaced online, showing him sitting on the floor surrounded by narcotics officers. The clip went viral, turning Adams into an overnight cautionary headline. Investigators with Dirandro, Peru's anti-drug division, found that Adams had entered the country from Brazil a week earlier and was booked on a flight back to London via Madrid. They also found text exchanges referencing deliveries and packages, though he insisted he had been tricked. The cocaine was laboratory tested and confirmed to be of high purity, valued at nearly $300,000. Prosecutors charged him under Article 296 of Peru's Criminal Code, which carries a minimum of 6 years for drug trafficking. Adams was taken to Miguel Castro Prison, one of Lima's highest security facilities. British diplomats were notified, and his family was informed through the Foreign Office. During pre-trial hearings in May 2024, Adams initially maintained innocence, claiming another person gave him the suitcase. But when confronted with CCTV showing him handling the bag throughout check-in, he changed his plea. On June 18, 2024, the 6th Criminal Court of Lima sentenced him to 6 years and 8 months in prison and fined him $5,000. The judge acknowledged his cooperation but ruled that the seriousness of the crime left no room for leniency. British tabloids, including the Mirror and Sky News, followed the story closely. Interviews with family friends described him as ambitious but naive. The Peruvian Ministry of Justice confirmed there would be no prisoner transfer agreement for his case. Adams remains incarcerated in Lima, serving his term under strict supervision. His TikTok account, once filled with motivational posts, was deleted shortly after his conviction. Number 6. Cat Torres. In early 2024, Brazilian federal police launched an investigation into a wellness retreat in Trancoso, a beachside town in Bahia. The retreat promised spiritual healing and personal transformation, led by former model-turned-influencer Cat Torres. Torres had once lived in the United States, attending modeling events and promoting self-help content on Instagram and TikTok. By her late 20s, she had reinvented herself as a life coach, promising enlightenment through expensive retreats. But complaints began piling up. Several attendees alleged that Torres isolated them, took control of their bank cards, and subjected them to emotional manipulation. On March 18, 2024, officers raided her retreat center, Catiucia Institute of Light. They seized electronics, diaries, and financial records. Witnesses described being forbidden to contact family and told that leaving would disrupt their spiritual progress. Authorities charged her under Article 149A of Brazil's Penal Code, covering human trafficking and psychological coercion. Her trial opened in August 2024 at the Federal Court of Bahia. 8 former followers testified. They described Torres as controlling and unpredictable, alternating between charm and aggression. Prosecutors showed bank transfers exceeding 2 million reais over 2 years, traced directly to her personal accounts. Torres denied all allegations, saying participants came voluntarily and paid for her guidance. Her lawyers argued she was being targeted because of her fame and unconventional lifestyle. In November 2024, after reviewing over 1,200 pages of testimony, the court found her guilty of human trafficking, psychological abuse, and financial exploitation. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison, fined for damages, and banned from operating any wellness or spiritual enterprises. Outside the courthouse, cameras captured her being escorted by officers into a police vehicle, head lowered, wearing sunglasses. The crowd shouted as reporters filmed. The Brazilian Federal Police confirmed she would serve her term at Teixeira de Freitas Women's Prison, pending appeals. Her properties in Bahia were seized to recover funds owed to victims. Major outlets like O Globo and Folha de São Paulo described the case as one of the first in Brazil to connect influencer culture with organized psychological exploitation. Number 5. Cameron Herrin. On May 23, 2018, Cameron Herrin, then 18 years old, joined another driver in street racing along Bayshore Boulevard in Tampa, Florida. The two were driving dangerously, with Herrin's Mustang reaching speeds of over 100 miles per hour. As they raced, a mother, Jessica Reisinger Rubenold, was pushing her 21-month-old daughter, Lilia, in a stroller across the road. They were not in a marked crosswalk, but crossing via a pedestrian ramp. The speeding car struck them. Jessica died at the scene. Lilia was rushed to hospital, but died the next day. In the days after the crash, Herrin was arrested and charged with 2 counts of vehicular homicide and related offenses. Prosecutors presented evidence including vehicle speed, witness testimony, and the scene reconstruction. They showed that Herrin had driven recklessly multiple times, that his speed was far above the limit, and that the crash was not an accident. Herrin's case drew wide public attention. After plea negotiations, in April 2021, he entered a guilty plea to the charges. Judge Christopher Nash presided over sentencing. The court heard emotional statements. Jessica's husband condemned Herrin, calling his conduct dangerous and saying he showed little remorse. Herrin's family, friends, and teachers testified about his character, describing him as a good kid before that day. On April 8, 2021, Herrin was sentenced to 24 years in prison, 9 years on the first vehicular homicide count, and 15 years on the second, to run consecutively. The sentence was less than the maximum possible of 30 years for the combined counts, but significant. Herrin's attorneys later attempted to reduce the sentence, citing statements that the ruling was excessively harsh. However, in May 2022, a Florida appeals court upheld the original 24-year sentence. Herrin is currently incarcerated. His case remains a frequent topic on social media, especially TikTok, where supporters and critics continue to debate the severity of the punishment. Number 4. Heston James. Heston Cobb, known online as Heston James, built a substantial following on TikTok by posting prank videos that often involved impersonating employees at various businesses. Between March and July 2025, Cobb and his associates filmed themselves entering staff-only areas at establishments like Pep Boys, Jiffy Lube, Chipotle, and Highland Auto Repair, creating disruptions for the sake of content. One notable video showed Cobb posing as a corporate mechanic at Highland Auto Repair, directing a group to work on customer vehicles, leading to confusion and concern among employees and customers alike. These pranks garnered millions of views and significant online revenue. However, they also attracted the attention of law enforcement. In July 2025, Cobb was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, including burglary, criminal impersonation, disorderly conduct, and criminal trespassing. The Tempe Police Department emphasized that Cobb's actions went beyond harmless pranks and entered the realm of criminal behavior. The case serves as a cautionary tale about the potential legal repercussions of online content creation and the importance of considering the impact on real-world businesses and individuals. Number 3. The YNW Melly case. It was a story that blurred the line between rap stardom, internet fame, and a chilling double murder. Jamel Morris Demons, better known to the world as YNW Melly, was not only a chart-topping artist, but also a social media icon whose music and persona spread rapidly on TikTok. His songs, especially Murder on My Mind, became the soundtrack for millions of videos, with fans lip-syncing to lyrics that, in hindsight, carried an eerie echo of what was to come. Before the fame, Melly grew up in Gifford, Florida, a small, troubled neighborhood where music was both an escape and a weapon. He began uploading freestyles and short performance clips to YouTube and TikTok as a teenager, often posting from his bedroom or the street corners of his hometown. His online presence exploded. TikTok users turned his verses into trends, and his fame went viral almost overnight. But even as his numbers climbed, darker stories started to swirl around his circle of friends, known collectively as YNW, Young N, World. By late 2018, Melly was already signed to a label and gaining mainstream attention. Yet on October 26th of that year, something horrific unfolded. Two of his close friends and fellow crew members, Anthony Williams, YNW Sackchaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., YNW Juvie, were found dead in a Jeep in Miramar, Florida. They had both been shot multiple times. At first, it looked like a drive-by shooting. Melly's friend and driver, Cortland Henry, YNW Bortland, rushed the bodies to a nearby hospital, claiming they had been attacked by unknown assailants. But detectives quickly realized the story didn't add up. The ballistic evidence told a different story. The bullet holes in the car were inconsistent with a drive-by pattern. Instead, forensic experts determined the shots had been fired from inside the vehicle. Investigators began to suspect that the murders were staged. In the months that followed, phone records, GPS data, and surveillance footage started to point toward a chilling conclusion: that Melly himself had pulled the trigger, and Bortland had helped cover it up. When detectives confronted Melly in early 2019, he was calm. He denied everything, insisting he loved his friends and would never harm them. But the digital evidence was damning. Data from his phone placed him at the scene. Messages recovered from social media, and his device showed coordination with Bortland after the killings, discussing how to handle the situation. One message simply read, "I did that." On February 13, 2019, YNW Melly was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors claimed he had killed his 2 friends in cold blood, driven their bodies around for hours, then staged the shooting to make it appear as if rival gangs were responsible. The case immediately became a media sensation. Melly's fame had skyrocketed online. His song Murder on My Mind went platinum shortly after his arrest, climbing music charts even as he sat behind bars. The irony of the title and the lyrics, "I wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind," fueled public fascination and horror. When the trial finally began in 2023, the courtroom was packed. Reporters from across the country filled the benches, and fans lined the streets outside. Prosecutors described how Melly and his friends left a recording studio in Fort Lauderdale that night. only for the trip to end in bloodshed. They presented cell phone tower data showing Melly's phone movement matching the car's route and text messages that placed him in contact with Portland during and after the shooting. Inside the courtroom, Melly often sat quietly, dressed in a suit, showing little emotion. Occasionally, he smiled at his family or fans. The contrast between the confident, animated performer from TikTok and the subdued defendant in court was striking. Prosecutors, however, argued that his calm was proof of detachment, not innocence. In July 2023, after weeks of testimony, the jury deadlocked. The result was a mistrial. The state vowed to retry the case, but as legal maneuvering continued, a pattern of evidence emerged that was difficult to ignore. Multiple forensic experts confirmed that the trajectory of the bullets indicated the shooter had been seated behind the victims. In 2025, the retrial finally reached its conclusion. In May 2025, after 6 years of delays and divided opinions, the jury delivered its verdict, guilty on both counts of first-degree murder. The judge's voice broke the courtroom's silence as he read the sentence: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Melly's family wept. He remained motionless, staring ahead, lips pressed tightly together. The courtroom transcript noted how, as the sentence was read, the rapper whispered something to himself, unintelligible, but captured on camera. Some claimed he said a prayer, others said it was disbelief. Outside, fans and reporters flooded the courthouse steps. TikTok clips of the verdict reached millions within hours, cementing YNW Melly not only as a convicted killer, but as one of the most infamous figures in the intersection of fame, music, and crime. Number 2. Ruby Franke. She built $1 million image of the perfect family online, but behind the cameras, terror was ruling her household. Ruby Franke, the Utah mom behind 8 Passengers, went from viral momfluencer to convicted child abuser, her carefully curated life shattered by the horrors hidden in plain sight. It began as a family channel built on wholesome advice, picture-perfect parenting, and moral lessons that drew millions of viewers. Ruby Franke, the Utah mother of 6 behind the popular YouTube and TikTok presence 8 Passengers, had become one of America's most recognizable momfluencers. Her clips, often shared across TikTok, portrayed a disciplined household, children with chores, strict rules, and constant reminders of obedience. But what the public didn't see was that behind those smiling thumbnails, something far darker was happening. On August 30th, 2023, police in Evans, Utah received a 911 call that would shatter her carefully curated image. A 12-year-old boy, emaciated and covered in duct tape and open wounds, had escaped from a window of Franke's business partner's home and begged a neighbor for food and water. When authorities arrived, they discovered shocking signs of abuse. The boy identified himself as Ruby Franke's son. Within hours, officers raided the property, finding another malnourished child and evidence of prolonged starvation and physical punishment. Franke was arrested on the scene alongside her partner, Jody Hildebrandt, a self-proclaimed family therapist who co-hosted their online counseling channel Connexions. The charges included multiple counts of aggravated child abuse, each carrying decades in prison. Prosecutors revealed that the children had been tied up, denied food, and psychologically tormented under the guise of discipline and spiritual correction. The trial began in early 2024. Witnesses described a house of terror disguised as moral order. Medical experts testified that the children were within days of organ failure when rescued. In December 2024, Ruby Franke pleaded guilty to 4 felony counts of aggravated child abuse. The judge sentenced her to a minimum of 4 consecutive prison terms of 1 to 15 years each, effectively a life sentence under Utah law. The influencer who once preached virtue online had become the face of parental horror, a digital idol unmasked in the harshest light of justice. Number 1. Amine Mojito. In June 2025, French influencer Ilan M., known online as Amine Mojito, gained viral attention for a prank video where he pretended to inject unsuspecting pedestrians with a syringe on the streets of Paris. The video, titled Mojito le Piqueur Fou, the Mad Stinger, was posted just days before France's Fête de la Musique festival. At the time, the country was already on edge due to reports of real needle attacks at public events, leading to widespread public panic. Despite the syringe being capped and no actual harm occurring, the video sparked outrage and was condemned as irresponsible and dangerous. Authorities received over 2,100 reports of similar incidents during the festival, amplifying public fear. In response, the Paris Criminal Court sentenced Mojito to 12 months in prison, with 6 months suspended. He was also fined €1,500 and banned from owning or carrying weapons for 3 years. Mojito expressed remorse, stating he was unaware of the broader context and had been influenced by similar content from other countries. This case highlights the potential real-world consequences of online content and the responsibility influencers bear in considering public safety when creating viral material.